once the human mind was mapped, tested, and pushed to its limits. Attention shifted to something more concrete: the body. Unlike thoughts, the body reacts in predictable ways. It breaks, it fails, it shuts down. These reactions can be measured, recorded, and compared. For researchers driven by data, the human body became the next logical subject. At first, the justification seemed reasonable. Understanding physical limits could save lives. Pilots needed to survive high acceleration. Soldiers needed to endure extreme conditions. Doctors needed to know how much trauma the body could tolerate. But curiosity quickly blurred into exploitation. The body was no longer protected by uncertainty. Its boundaries could be forced. Early experiments focused on exposure, heat. Subjects were placed into environments far outside normal human experience. Extreme temperatures tested thermoregulation. Rapid decompression tested lung resilience. High G-forces tested circulatory limits. These were not simulations. They were real bodies experiencing real stress. Pain became a variable, not something to avoid, but something to quantify. Researchers increased intensity gradually, watching for failure points. The moment the body crossed a threshold, data was collected. Pain responses varied widely. Some subjects endured far beyond expectations. Others collapsed suddenly. The unpredictability fascinated oxygen deprivation revealed how quickly the body betrays itself. Vision narrowed, hearing distorted, consciousness faded. In some cases, subjects lost awareness without warning. In others, panic accelerated failure. The body's survival mechanisms sometimes worked against it, amplifying damage instead of preventing it. Acceleration experiments pushed the cardiovascular system to extremes. Blood pooled away from the brain. Vision darkened. Loss of consciousness occurred within seconds. Recovery was not guaranteed. Some subjects regained awareness, confused and disoriented. Others suffered lasting neurological damage. Infection experiments crossed an even darker line. Disease was introduced intentionally. Burns were observed instead of healed. How fast would infections spread? At what point would organ failure occur? Consent, when it existed, was often incomplete. Risks were minimized or omitted. In some cases, subjects were told they were receiving treatment they were not. Vulnerable populations were overrepresented. Prisoners, those with limited ability to refuse. Control made experimentation easier. The body does not experience trauma in isolation. Nervous systems record pain. Stress responses become embedded. Even after physical wounds healed, subjects reported chronic pain, heightened sensitivity, and involuntary reactions. The body remembered what the mind tried to forget. Some experiments focused on endurance rather than injury. How long could a human remain submerged? How long without food? These tests revealed how quickly the body begins consuming itself. Muscle tissue breaks down, cognitive function declines, survival becomes mechanical. As experiments escalated, so did consequences. Not all subjects survived. Deaths were recorded clinically, stripped of narrative. Failures were reframed as data points. The language of science insulated researchers from moral responsibility. Distance made harm easier. Over time, patterns emerged. The body could adapt remarkably well within limits. Beyond those limits, collapse was sudden and irreversible. There was no gradual failure. Systems shut down in cascade. Circulation failed. Respiration failed. Consciousness disappeared. The body does not negotiate with extremes. What troubled even some researchers was how easily these limits could be crossed. Human physiology evolved for survival, not experimentation. Once pushed beyond natural environments, defenses became liabilities. Panic increased oxygen demand. Stress elevated heart rate. Fear accelerated damage. The long-term effects extended beyond individuals. Medical knowledge advanced rapidly. Techniques refined. Safety thresholds established. But the origin of that knowledge remained obscured. Published results rarely acknowledged how they were obtained. Ethical cost was omitted. Eventually, oversight emerged. Committees, regulations, consent protocols. These were not acts of compassion, but containment. Public exposure threatened legitimacy. The solution was control, not reflection. Experiments moved behind layers of classification. What could not be justified publicly was hidden privately. Even after formal restrictions, variations continued. The boundaries shifted rather than disappeared. Acceptable risk became flexible. Definitions were adjusted. What mattered was not whether harm occurred, but whether it could be defended procedurally. The most unsettling truth is not that these experiments happened, but that they were effective. They produced usable data. They shaped modern medicine, aviation, and safety standards. Lives were saved later because lives were sacrificed earlier. This moral equation remains unresolved. Human progress has not been clean. The body paid a price long before protections existed. Today, we trust medical systems, research institutions, and ethical frameworks. And for good reason. Safeguards matter. But they were not born from idealism. They were written after failure. After damage. It adapts until it cannot. Experiments revealed this brutally. There is no hidden reserve beyond biology, new phenol buffer. When limits are crossed, the cost is permanent. This is why ethics exist, not as obstacles to progress, but as boundaries learned through suffering. The past demonstrates what happens when curiosity outruns responsibility, when data outweighs dignity, when bodies become instruments. The mind was manipulated. The body was pushed. Together, they define the darkest chapters of experimentation. And they remind us that science without restraint does not advance humanity. It consumes it. The question is not whether we will continue to test boundaries we always wall. The question is whether we remember where those boundaries came from and what it costs to discover them.